of computers and hand drawing?
No, it's a render in Photoshop and then a photograph behind.
Yes, it's both. You can see that it's got more life in it than most.
No, but it is a computer image.
Yes, a computer image finally, but there are elements in building it up, right?
No.
All the buildings are computer generated.
Yeah.
And then
It's a photograph.
the photograph behind is actually the photograph I showed you at the start.
And then it's photoshopped.
And it's photoshopped with people and things pulled from, so all the mangroves and things are from photographs around the corner, and then people from
So
different.
it's a collage in a way.
Yeah. Wonderful,
Very good.
wonderful presentation, beautiful models, very clearly explained, and I think Peter said about teeth. Like this is a wonderful scheme because it looks at the principles of how to make a house and what makes a house, and the grounding socially of the house, and what makes community and what makes neighbours reasonable people with each other, and so on. So all of that is, and for me, that's the fundamentals of architecture. That's for these kind of projects. So it's really lovely to see, and it's fantastic the way it's been thought through. And if it was proposed, I'd be in there buying one, you know, because I think it's such a wonderful.
Well founded, isn't it? Very well founded.
Yeah. Richard, Peter,
Oh, I just think this is what I call at a level of a final year project from Go to Woe, because it does consider the location and the site plan, the intersections are well thought of, the relationship between public and private, making a social space. You've thought about the hierarchies of the settlement. My only quibble about it, I would have made the margin between the creek and the housing greater, but I mean, we'd argue that on site, you know. But I think so much has been imagined about being there. That's what I like about the project, and so well judged about widths and heights. We wanted to know only because we know what will work and what won't work, and just testing it a bit. And then thinking about shelving and how it might be put together. We could quibble about downpipes and drainage and whatever, you know, and little bits more awnings here and there, but it's a beautifully thought out piece of work, and I appreciate that you've gone from the bigger thinking to the smaller thinking to people to construction, and also that aesthetically it is come out of that thinking rather than an image, unless, you know, it's something that you've imagined is where it's come out of. And being aware of variance in scale, big scale, little scale, medium scale, and just knowing that that's what the body needs. And I just think it's a very convincing and beautifully thought out.
Just what an amazing complete project, you know, like from Go to Woe, and I was right in there, sort of 30% in. I was walking around the buildings, I was feeling the barbecue area, I was buying from the shop out on the street. It was just totally engaging, Beck. It was fantastic, and the evolution of this scheme from sort of, you know, your beginnings to now is just very, very beautiful and well thought through. And what I really love about this scheme is its humility. It's got a sensitivity and a humility that is very hard to produce in architecture. You know, it's a very difficult thing, but out of that has come an aesthetic as well, which is quite incredible. I mean, I'd be interested, because I myself are thinking about it, I'd be interested to see how canvas would work as the infill material. You know, so you could actually make canvas rooms and canvas roofs, and then suddenly they're there for 20 years and gone. You know?
Is that one?
That's not
red
the
one? That's the red one. Is that canvas?
No, I think Beck's spoken about that.
And you know, I mean, that's a really, I think, a fascinating thing. That I was up on the headland where the old bowling club was last weekend, and my daughter discovered that thing for the cannon up there. You know, and it's a wonderful thing to walk into, because it's a memory of the past, and yet it's space still. You know, it's viable, occupiable space, and it's got nothing to protect it other than its walls. And, you know, there's no glazing or canvas or anything. And I'm thinking, as I'm looking at this, imagine like a storm going through and losing all the parts except for these beautiful walls, you know, that you get back in and occupy immediately. in a funny way, it almost translates to that sort of housing, temporary or emergency housing in some way as well. It could be adapted for that. It's a great story. It's a really beautiful start to finish story, which is how Brick first started. And you can just feel the comprehensive nature of it. And I really compliment you. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Starts from the heart, Beck, doesn't it? I mean, you began thinking you would like to make an inhabitation there for people who didn't have much dough, who could get a first foothold, add to it over time, and that finally, after this has been going for 30 or 40 years, it starts to take on that wonderful sort of ad hoc sort of nature that all great peasant housing often has. And it's very hard to get it as a deliberate act in architecture. It's always somehow tight and stiff and a fait accompli and a finish object and everything. But you started with that in mind. That's what you wanted it to fit. And it has. It's a difficult thing to do. So everything that the other two have said, I agree with absolutely. You've done it really beautifully, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well done. Very well done. Good on you. Nice to see.
And it's social integration.
Yeah,
It's really
excellent.
good.
Yeah.
You've done all the edges, you've integrated with tape and water, and it's social integration.
Excellent.
Very nice.
Yep.
Do you want to say anything else?
I really like the way you've got your trees.
I was trying to say that too.
I don't think they're trees. I think they're more shrubs. And
Yeah.
They're weeds.
That's a good housing scheme there. Rare to see. Good on you.
Okay, thanks, Beck.